I'm Jonathan, welcome to Rather Be Riffing. So in this video, I'm going to make a montage of all of my guitar A/B comparison videos to date. It'll primarily feature PRS guitars. I've got 594s, the single cut version, double cut version, Hollowbody version. I compare those to a Gibson Les Paul as well as a 335 style guitar. I also throw the PRS DGT in the mix for comparison purposes, as well as a PRS Silver Sky. I compare that to a boutique Strat offering. I'll offer some of my thoughts and some of my learnings in this journey. And if you're curious to go deeper into any of these guitar comparisons, check out dedicated videos. I'll drop links to those in the description box below. And as always, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those in the comments. So let's dive in. So what started me on this journey is when I acquired this PRS 594 private stock. I had already owned a single cut version, and when I acquired this double cut version, I was trying to decide which one of them I wanted to keep. So I made some videos for myself, and then I decided, maybe you guys could find this information helpful as well. And so I started posting. And so in this first video, I'm going to compare the PRS 594 double cut versus the PRS 594 single cut. So after that first comparison, I was still quite indecisive as I loved aspects of both guitars. Now the ergonomics were quite different, so that was a differentiating factor, but I was really focused on the tone at this stage, trying to decide which voice I liked better. I felt like the single cut was a little bolder, and I felt like the double cut was a little sweeter. But I ended up taking some advice from you guys in the comments. Many of you suggested, why don't you keep the guitar that complements the rest of your collection the most? And so that got me thinking, I already own a classic single cut guitar. So I decided to compare both of the 594s against my Gibson Les Paul to see which one of them complemented it more. So up next, let's check out the 594 double cut versus the Gibson Les Paul. So when I posted that comparison video, many folks preferred the Gibson Les Paul in that example over the 594 double cut. And I actually took that as an indication that the two guitars had different sounds and more complementary voices. And so to test that, I decided to compare the 594 single cut versus the Les Paul. So let's check that out next. So in that comparison, I felt like the 594 single cut sounded closer to the Les Paul than the double cut version. And for that reason, along with a few other factors, I ultimately decided to keep the double cut 594 version. And while I don't regret the decision, part of me does miss that single cut PRS 594. It's an absolutely stellar example, drop dead gorgeous guitar. It ended up shipping to Hong Kong, so that is long gone now. But I really hope the new owner is enjoying it and putting it to good use. So I'm curious to know which of the three guitars you preferred, and if you had to choose between the 594 double cut and single cut, which one would you choose? So now at this point, having decided to keep the PRS 594 double cut, I had the opportunity to compare it to the Hollowbody version, which I've always been very curious about. So I'll compare the two in this next clip. And so what stood out to me in that comparison is the Hollowbody had a warmer tone and a rounder attack, whereas the solid body version had a brighter tone and a bit more attitude and character. I thought both guitars sounded great. Let me know if you had a preference. And so a popular request I received after posting that comparison was, how does the 594 Hollowbody compare to a Gibson 335 style guitar? And I so happen to have a Thorn Grantura, which is inspired by a vintage 335. So I decided to compare the two guitars. So let's check that out. While both those guitars have F-holes, I found their voices were also quite different. The Thorn Grantura was a bit brighter, had a little more character. I found the 594 Hollowbody, again, was a bit sweeter, warmer, and a little fatter sounding. Both incredible voices, so I think it really comes down to what your individual preferences and needs are. So up next, let's compare the 594 to the other vintage voiced PAF-inspired guitar in the PRS lineup. That is the PRS DGT model. So while both these guitars are more vintage-inspired offerings from PRS, they also sound quite different. I found the DGT was a little warmer, thicker, fatter sounding, and also feels quite a bit different with a longer scale length at 25 inches versus the 594 at 24.594 scale length. Both those guitars have a lot of great split coil sounds, which you can check out in my dedicated guitar comparison video linked below. And so the PRS DGT was also designed with versatility in mind. And so I wanted to compare it to another guitar that I find to be quite versatile, which is an HSS-equipped S-type guitar. So in this next comparison, let's look at the PRS DGT versus an Xotic XSC-2. Again, both killer tones. I found the HSS was a bit brighter. Of course, both these guitars have many other sounds that they offer, so be sure to check out the video on that if you're curious to explore further. And so now that we're in Stratocaster territory, it only makes sense to segue into the PRS Silver Sky. In this next comparison, I'm going to see how the Silver Sky stacks up against a boutique S-type offering, the Scott Lentz Reserve. So let's check that out. really blown away with how well the Silver Sky compared to the Lentz, especially considering that the Lentz is about 8x the price point. The Silver Sky, I would have to say, is my favorite under $1,000 Stratocaster type of guitar out of all the ones that I've played. And if you're in the market for an SE Silver Sky and you're trying to decide whether the maple board version or the rosewood board version is right for you, I'll be doing a comparison between these two in an upcoming video, so stay tuned. And so two guitars I'm curious to compare that I haven't made a video on yet is the private stock 594 versus the Nick Huber Orca 59. The Orca takes some design inspirations from the private stock, and when I did my deep dive review of the Orca and also my comparison to my Gibson Les Paul, some of you had asked to compare the Orca to the PRS private stock. And so if there's still interest in that, let me know and I'd be happy to do so. In the meantime, let's compare the Orca 59 to a Gibson Les Paul. So I'm super curious which guitars you favored overall in the video. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments and I'd be happy to answer them. Also, if there's any combination of these guitars that I haven't compared yet that you'd be curious to see, let me know and I would be happy to make a video on it. In the meantime, I've got more guitar comparison videos in the works. I'll be comparing a PRS 594 core model versus the 594 SE model, as well as the PRS SE Silver Sky maple board versus rosewood board version. If you have any other suggestions or requests, please do let me know. In the meantime, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider liking, commenting, or subscribing. That would really help get the content out to others that may enjoy it as well. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.